This month on In Case You Missed It, visit the Providence Athenaeum, a library filled with fascinating treasures and stories.
And this is a fun little secret part of the library that we like to tell people about.
Learn about mental health resources for transgender people.
It's still really a concept that people are trying to understand better, but we really don't know how to approach it.
Discover 300 years of East Greenwich history stitched into a very special quilt. And experience the joy of our Black community.
Don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing.
All this and much more, in case you missed it. Welcome to In Case You Missed It, where you can catch up on some of the best local content on Rhode Island PBS, plus get a sneak peek at exciting new content coming soon to your screen. First on our list, did you ever wonder what's inside the Providence Athenaeum? Rhode Island PBS Weekly takes you there.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Ovoian. I'm the head of research and library services here at the Providence Athenaeum. We are kind of a relic here in Providence. We're a 19th century library that's operating in the 21st century. The building has so much charm and so many fun little aspects to it that any time you turn a corner, you're bound to notice something new. Here we are at the Athenaeum's card catalog. This was introduced to the library in the 1880s, and a librarian named Grace Leonard was hired in 1895 specifically to introduce the Dewey Decimal System to the library. So at the time of her hire, we had 56,000 items in the collection, and it took Grace 13 years to finish writing out all of the cards. If we open up one of these drawers, you can still see Grace's handwritten cards inside. So here we have one of the gems of the Athenaeum's art collection. This is The Hours by Newport-based artist Edward Malbone. It was stolen in 1881 by one Providence gentleman and then another man who was thought to have been part of Jesse James's gang. But a detective was on the case, produced a reward poster, and the works came back to the library. It's lived in this case here ever since. All right, so welcome to the Philbrook Rare Book Room. Out on display on the cabinet today, we have the Description of Egypt. This set of books was commissioned by Napoleon when he was bringing his troops to Egypt. He also brought scholars, scientists, and artists to record everything that they were seeing in Egypt. And then they published their findings in this set of books. It was a real hot-ticket item at the time, and the books were responsible for paving the way for the birth of modern Egyptology and kicking off the wave of Egyptomania that swept through North America and Europe at the time.
So many fascinating stories and treasures within those walls. And we continue with another Rhode Island PBS Weekly story as Pamela Watts examines the mental health challenges facing many transgender people.
The worst part about my job is probably my commute. It takes me about 45 minutes to get up there.
30-year-old Cole Love of Pawtucket is a plumber by trade. He's your classic, blue-collar, hard-working guy. But Cole didn't start out life that way. He was born female.
How old were you when you first realized, I'm not a girl?
Probably around 4 years old. I remember wanting to be born first before my brother. I have an older brother. That's who I wanted to be. I wanted to be him. I wanted to not just be him, but be a boy.
Because that felt natural to you?
Yes. It felt more than natural. It felt like who I was. Unfortunately, my parents didn't understand, and I didn't know what words to tell them. And so they tried to have me conform to a more feminine path in life and like wear dresses and stuff. But that's when like I dove into depression and having anxiety. I became extremely closed into myself and didn't really talk to people, and I ended up trying to kill myself when I was 17 because of who I was. And
you really came close to suicide?
Yeah, I felt trapped. I felt trapped inside my body, and I didn't know exactly what the name of what I was feeling was. when I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself. I didn't recognize who I wanted to be and what I felt inside.
It isn't easy for most teenagers to search for identity, but for people like Cole who are transgender, it can be confounding and agonizing. Transgender is an umbrella term for when one's sense of personal identity doesn't match with their birth sex. Cole says he finally found therapists through a local healthcare provider.
They have been such like a beacon of light in like that dark time that I was experiencing.
The therapist linked him up with support groups where he met other individuals who were going through the same struggles.
I was able to try out he, him pronouns, and I was also able to try out being called Cole, and it felt so right for me. Like, I remember the first time it happened, I went home and like was crying because I was so happy. That's when I knew. I had top surgery, which is a double mastectomy, and my father actually took some time off for that.
Cole has found support from his parents and also from his wife. He and Faye, who was born and identifies as a woman, have been married 3 years.
So tell me about how you met.
So we met at a friend's Halloween party in Minnesota. I just introduced myself as Cole. We didn't like branch off into, I didn't disclose that my trans status until like a couple of dates in.
How did you broach that subject?
It was kind of like, oh, hey, I'm trans, by the way. And it was just like, oh, okay.
Were you nervous?
A little bit, but it was more so like, I got to get this over with if I want to continue on with going down that path of courtship and dating.
Do you look forward to maybe having a family one day?
It is doable, and we plan on doing either IVF or doing foster care and then adoption.
For right now, Cole is content just being comfortable in his own skin.
Are you a happy man?
Yes. Yeah, no, I'm living my best life. Yeah. I do mourn for who I was, but I'm happy I'm alive now.
You can watch the full story on watch.ripbs.org. And don't forget to tune in for new episodes of Rhode Island PBS Weekly, Sundays at 7:30 p.m. with an encore on Wednesdays. Next up, if you're looking for stories that impact Rhode Island communities of color, be sure to watch In Another Opinion. In this episode, meet Dr. Tirza Lima-Neves as she discusses the impact of Cape Verdean women in their communities and beyond.
Tell me about the role of the Cape Verdean woman in the community, both on the island, let's say, as well as does that role change here on this in the mainland, on the States?
Right. So I think the role doesn't change with location. I think it changes with generations. And I think that it's only getting better and more exciting and more independent and spontaneous. Historically speaking, because this is my area of work, I focus on Cape Verdean women's studies. Cape Verdean women have been the preservers and the builders of our communities. We are the educators. We are the ones who are leading the organizations and doing support initiatives to help back home in several moments of throughout history. So we come together for whatever is necessary to keep the communities alive and thriving, whether we're in Cape Verde or we're anywhere in the diaspora. And so what we're seeing now is that with each generation that comes, we're seeing that we are more educated, formally educated. We're going after the college degrees a lot more. We're bolder. We're starting our own businesses.
Tune in for In Another Opinion Sundays at 10:30 a.m. Our next story comes from the Our Town series, where we take a trip to East Greenwich to see a quilt that spans 300 years of colorful history.
This wonderful piece of folk art was stitched in 1977 by the women of East Greenwich to celebrate the town's 300th anniversary. I'm a member of the Historic Preservation Society in East Greenwich, and it hung on a rack there. And when I looked at it, I said, this is too gorgeous to be hidden in this room, and so made arrangements to have it hung in the library. It's about 40 squares. It measures 6 feet by 8 feet, so it's quite large. And it shows, you know, various aspects of East Greenwich. Each patch shows, places in town that people will recognize. And I think it tells the story of the town, the history of the town, kind of charmingly. It shows some of our historic buildings like the Varnum Armory, the Kent County Courthouse, which now serves as our town hall, and the railroad station, which has private businesses. It also shows some of our town's charms: summer sailing on the Cove, a school scene, and winter ice skating. Then and now history, colonial dress, and contemporary 1970s fashion. Both look pretty dated, don't they? Designed by a local artist named Arlene Ozolan. 47 women each contributed a quilt square, and each quilter was given a pattern for her square and cotton fabric and deadlines to turn in their finished patch. The whole project took only 2 months. I think it's a remarkable achievement. All of these squares were assembled and finished by Marion Fry, who sewed the apple-picking square. I'm a quilter, so I really have an affection for this thing. It also has a very folk art kind of style to it. I think it's a great way of showing history in thread and fabric.
Enjoy the full Our Town series on watch.ripbs.org. Next up, in our new series, Ocean State Sessions, you get a chance to meet local musicians and hear them perform original songs. In this month's highlight, meet T. Bloodhound as he performs and talks about Backburner.
My mama always said I was a fast learner. I used to have a nickel, now I got at least 11, can't put me on the back burner. I'm the bright fire shining and the diner off 95 tickets in my tax folder. I've been betting all day, can't seem to turn a debt into $1 with the honor over. $1 with the honor over. I've been facing my way through a dark hallway. I don't like your attitude, and if you play that way with your money, I'll say, sonny, you are bound to lose. I've been pacing my way through a dark hallway. I don't like your attitude. If you play that way with your money, I'll say, sonny, you are bound to lose. My dad always said I was a slow starter, just to taking my time in the middle of the limelight. I like to hit the bottle harder. Yeah, I'm feeling like a wild man, wrapped up, ready to be blowing out my throttle charger. I'm getting knocked down, gonna get back up in the race, go a little farther. This time we'll get a little farther. Yeah, my mama always said I was such a fast learner. You can't put me on the back burner. My mama always said I was a fast learner. I used to have a nickel, now I got at least 11, can't put me on the back burner. I'm the bright fire shining in the diner off 95 tickets in my tax folder. I've been betting all day, can't seem to turn a debt into $1 with the honor over. Have a problem when the day is over.
songs are sometimes just a feeling that you know about. So when you write a really good song, and it comes from a place in my brain, and people will ask and be like, hey, like that sounded like you sound really upset, or you sound like you're dealing with something, and it's like just a feeling that I know about, and I figured out a way to show how I feel about that feeling. And so Back Burner, it's a song about have these little problems, but it's like approaching it in a way where you refuse to be second best at something. You can't put me on the back burner. That's just that idea of like, who am I? I'm the bright fire shining in the diner off 95. Who am I? And that's a way to be confident about it, as opposed to kind of this introverted way of writing songs, which I do a lot of. I just want to put my songs in anywhere that, we talk about those feelings, being people trying to communicate with themselves, and I feel like some of the music that's changed my life the most has been songs of other folks trying to communicate with themselves, and I end up hearing and feeling the same thing that they're feeling or hearing, and that's kind of my goal, is to try to be one of those artists that, without all of the kind of flashy things and kind of overselling myself, if my songs could just be helpful to someone.
Enjoy Ocean State Sessions on Sundays at 10:30 p.m. Next, a must-see digital series, Black Joy, takes a look at what inspires and uplifts Rhode Island's Black community.
I grew up on the south side of Providence, Rhode Island. I lived in this beautiful house on Warrington Street, and I just remember riding my bike up and down the street and falling and selling lemonade on my front porch. When I was probably like in middle school, my mom went back to college, and she went to Johnson & Wales, so she was taking marketing classes, and I snuck in and went with her occasionally. So I was like, Mom, I want to do something too. I started working on Kin just as a project during COVID. I was home and I just started thinking about all my favorite moments with my friends and family. And every time I came back to like Thanksgiving dinner or our summer barbecues where we had all these delicious dishes that I grew up eating. My great-grandmother, showed me how to cook. So that's kind of how Kin came to be, was me reminiscing about friends and family that I couldn't be with during COVID.
So when I was little, I wanted to be in the NFL, cooking. NFL, I wanted to, cook for my football team. But as I got older, I realized, making it to the NFL isn't as easy as every little kid thinks. So it's like, I like cooking. I started learning more about cooking. So I feel like every new step I learn in cooking, whether it's a simple dish or a new ingredient, just to make any recipe that much better, it just makes me feel good. I just want to cook forever.
I feel like when you go to other major cities like Detroit, even Boston, it's easy to say, hey, where can I find a place where people look like me? And I didn't feel like I knew of a place like that here in Providence, and I've grown up here my whole life. So I wanted to make sure that we had a space to go to. It's our food, it's BET on the TVs, any other night, it's the music that we play. We play everything from Earth, Wind & Fire to Kanye West. It was really just about sharing that Black culture that we have. Like if you went to a regular barbecue in the summer, like what would you see? You would have your auntie who's acting up, which is why we have a cocktail called Auntie's Kool-Aid. It's a spiked Kool-Aid. It's just, everything from that. And we do have staff and family that come in and on a Friday night, they act up. We get into it. It's fun, but it's also authentic. It's just who we are. We have a good time when we're together.
Individually, the whole staff, we all pitch our ideas to Julia, but as a team, we come down, sit together. We usually do a voting, what do we want to try, and head chef or myself will make it to everybody to try, and then when it hits the menu, that's up to the boss lady.
What needs to be at the barbecue was essentially how I came up with the menu. So if we're going, we gotta have mac and cheese. We have to have collard greens. There needs to be sweet potatoes, yams. There's must-have items. And then as for the cocktails, we really wanted to do a program that was focused around rum because a lot of the rum comes from Caribbean islands, and we really want to showcase Black-owned businesses, Black curators, and then of course we tweak our own cocktails, lots of rum.
I do like the Black Girl Magic. I do like that.
It was really just about sort of, sharing that Black culture that we have. Oh, I feel like that's what we have here in America. That's sort of our only tie to each other, is what we pass down to each other. Any time that we get together and we share a dish or share food or we cook for each other, that's us sharing our love, our soul, our joy, our history. And that's something, a tradition that we just have to keep going. And that's pretty much why I have kin. Because I want to share that with other people, and they should have it. Black joy is just our happiness when we're together. Whether it's when we're fighting for each other, fighting with each other, just being together. That's when we're most happy. I think no matter what, whenever we're together, we're just instantly connected. Even if I just met you off the street, we have that acknowledgement between each other that you just can't bottle up or sell.
You can watch the full Black Joy series at watch.ripbs.org. And now, here's a sneak peek at some of what's coming up on Rhode Island PBS in May.
Olga's Odyssey, The story of a young girl from Western Ukraine who survived Stalin's madness and escaped the Russians in World War II. In 1932, Olga's family narrowly avoided the Holodomor, Stalin's famine against Ukraine. In 1939, World War II began. The Russians invaded Ukraine. In 1941, the Germans invaded. In the summer of 1944, the Germans retreated, and the Russians invaded again.
May 6th at 7:30 p.m.
Narragansett Lager Beer, the beer with that famous straight-from-the-barrel taste.
I remember growing up in Rhode Island, and Narragansett beer was just kind of everywhere.
The brewery was originally the brainchild of 6 German-American businessmen.
It's one of those brands that obviously has been a big part of Rhode Island history.
To be honest with you, I'm kind of jealous of some people like whose father or grandfather or uncle worked at the brewery.
You could drink all the beer you want. So a few of those guys went out stumbling.
It was just becoming too inefficient to run. It was completely over by 1983.
The more people I talked to, it was just like, yeah, you got to bring Narragansett beer back.
Every day is a different beer, and I don't think Narragansett has seen that breadth of variety within the brand ever before.
Hi, neighbor.
May 25th at 8 p.m.
It feels like this culminated occasion of a year-plus worth of time, love, and dedication to save a piece of history that's so important.
To Stitch in Time, featuring the discovery of the oldest known colonial flag in the Americas, May 30th at 7:30 p.m. Thank you for joining us this month. We'll see you next time, in case you missed it.